How's it going, everybody? This is Brian for Pop Culture Crossing, and today we are talking about The Revenant, the film that finally gave Leonardo DiCaprio his Oscar for Best Actor. The movie follows Hugh Glass, a frontiersman and fur trapper, through and during his bear mauling and quest for survival and revenge against those who left him for dead. As such, the tone of the movie centers heavily on desperation, betrayal, survival, and revenge. Now, the film's pace is fast-moving and very intense, and it is like that throughout. There are only a few moments at the beginning of the movie where it's calm and tranquil, but other than that, it's pretty tense and crazy, even for the scenes where it's Leo alone just surviving. Now, Leo hits his performance as Hugh Glass just out of the park. Because of the bear attack, his throat was slashed, so he lost his ability to speak verbally. So for most of the movie, Leo doesn't have dialogue, but that doesn't stop or hinder his performance. If anything, I think it strengthens it and makes it that much more rich. Specifically, Leo uses what's called the very similar code, which is a realistic style of acting based or influenced by Stanislavski and the method, or method acting for realistic acting. And he also uses two main points of nonverbal communication, one being what's called kinesics, which is communication through body language and movement, and the other what's called proxemics, which is communication through physical space. So his mastery of those nonverbal elements, as well as the very similar code, really provide a more dynamic and rich performance. Now, he has been criticized as, just surviving or struggling or, suffering through his performance, but people say he didn't have much dialogue, he just suffered in The Revenant, so why'd he win, or he shouldn't be nominated? But I don't agree with that. Early film history in the silent movie era, the actors couldn't communicate verbally. There was text in between the scenes to provide context and kind of explain parts of the story, but the actors themselves couldn't talk. They had to communicate through facial expressions and body language and movement, and use those elements to portray their character and move the story along. And they did that effectively. And Leo does that as well in his performance. So I don't agree with those specific critiques. I have my notes here. And the supporting cast of Tom Hardy, Domhnall Gleeson, Will Poulter, and Forrest Goodluck are all very well done for their respective characters. Hardy specifically portrays a character called Fitzgerald, who is just despicable. And the first few moments he was on screen, I knew how bad he was and just how much I didn't like him, and that I wouldn't like any of his screen time, and I didn't really. And that's not a knock against Hardy's acting. If anything, it shows how versatile he is, that he could effectively take on and portray such a despicable character so convincingly. Now, Gleason's character particularly reminds us that military personnel at that time of history were not as well versed in frontier living and wilderness survival as the actual frontiersmen and mountain men, as Leo, Hardy, and Will Poulter's characters are. So Gleason's character just didn't really have any of that knowledge, and that is portrayed through his, perceived weakness and incompetence. Some people have criticized him for that, but it just really shows that he didn't have the acumen of frontier life that the actual mountain men had. So it was more realistic, in my opinion. Now, Emmanuel Lubezki's, or Chivo's, cinematography is just incredibly terrific and just breathtaking throughout. There were moments throughout the movie where I was thinking, I want that shot for my computer background. I want that one for my phone wallpaper, and I want that one as my Twitter banner. Just incredible shots throughout the movie. And there was an example that happened 2 times that I don't think I've seen in any other movie before. Or if I have, they're just so inconsequential that, I don't even remember them. And that was when Lubezki let Leo exhale onto the camera lens, which fogged it up. And this happened twice. And the first time it happened, the fog of his breath was transitioned into a cloud sequence. And for me, that just stood out as a great major moment of incredible cinematography and film editing. The movie CGI is great overall. It was shot heavily on location. Of course, you can use CG elements while on location, but it was very hard to discern the actual on-location elements, the practical elements, or the computer-generated images. There were a few instances where I thought they could have been better refined, specifically the bison sequence. I thought that CG stood out to me, and it could have been polished a little bit more, but by and large it was effectively executed. And Inarritu does a great job directing the film, and by this point everyone pretty much knows how difficult the shoot was, how hard it was, all that they had to go through, but none of that is communicated in or visible in the final product of The Revenant, the movie, which speaks to Inarritu's directing ability and his ability to effectively manage all the moving parts of the movie with various production things and studio support and the cast and cinematography and elements there. He just effectively managed those to create a very powerful final product that really is well deserving of the awards it won and the ones for which it was nominated. There was one element that was a constant throughout the movie, though, that I thought could have been better communicated earlier on. That was the 2 Native American tribes. So there's the Sioux and the Pawnee, which are both active throughout the movie. And I found it to be very hard to discern between the two. It wasn't until the end of the movie, or at least the third act, where I realized who was who. One of them was looking for a kidnapped daughter. That's not a spoiler. But by and large, I had a hard time figuring out which was which. And that could have been better done earlier, or better communicated earlier on in the movie. Now, shortly after the bear sequence, I was nervous how they were going to handle Glass's recovery. I was scared that they were going to make him seem like a demigod or, some superhero where he just literally gets shredded to pieces, but then just magically survives and can crawl hundreds of miles to, try to get revenge on those who betrayed him. But I was relieved that that wasn't the case, that they did address the fact and danger of infection, and that Glass had to take some time to recover more physically before he could continue on his journey. So that made the experience more rich and realistic, in my opinion. Overall, The Revenant is an incredibly raw, vibrant, and intense, but just really numbing experience. It's one of those movies where I would like to have in my collection, but it's not one that you want to watch, or at least I wouldn't want to watch very often. I think the intervals between watching would be better spaced out a little bit longer to keep it richer, and just because it is so just tense in the nature of the film. But this movie will leave you with an increased understanding of what frontier life was in the West and the time of Western expansion. That Inarritu does not sugarcoat or romanticize the West and the frontier like a lot of the Western genre films are. So it is a more realistic portrayal. And those looking for, more frontier type of movies, there aren't really a lot of frontier movies. There are a lot of Westerns, but really the ones focusing on the mountain men and the frontiersmen there's only a handful of them. So if you're looking for that type of a movie, or you're just interested in that period of history, or if you're just looking for a powerful movie, which is very rewarding experience with strong acting and beautiful visuals and a great story, I would definitely recommend The Revenant. And it does not pull any punches, so that may not sit well with some people, but if that is what you're looking for, you won't be disappointed, and I hope you check it out. So thank you. That is my review of The Revenant. I hope that you will keep the conversation going in the comments here below, as well as hit me up on Twitter with any insights or opinions you have. Did you think that Leo's performance was just him suffering through it, or did you think he did, utilize those elements I mentioned? Did you think that Gleason's character was weak, or do you think it is a more realistic portrayal? And do you think that Inarritu successfully navigated the issues of the shoot? Let me know below or on Twitter, and we'll keep the conversation going. In the meantime, if you want to check out a written review, which is a little bit more detailed, you can check it out here at popculturecrossing.com. And I would appreciate it if you could subscribe here to the YouTube channel to help me get a custom URL. The one I have now is pretty disgusting with a bunch of letters and numbers. So if we could get this custom one, that would be great. And I would appreciate your support. Thanks for watching. Bye.